Yes, I think what has happened is that now that Trump has succeeded in negotiating the ceasefire and the return of hostages in Gaza, which was, of course, not an easy thing to do, and I do believe that Trump, justifiably can take some credit for this, putting pressure on Israel, of course, to agree to the ceasefire, agree to a partial withdrawal of forces. Trump is on a roll. Frankly, particularly in wanting to be a candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize, and he's made it clear that having, if you like, done, in inverted commas, done the Middle East, he's now once again turning his attention to Ukraine. He's never quit when it comes to his, I think, genuine desire to stop the killing in Ukraine, to bring about some kind of peace process. He's already had that summit, which was unfortunately not very productive, with Putin in Alaska, where Putin spent the whole time lecturing him on the history of the Cossacks, not really talking about peace. So I think Trump has the kind of confidence now that after the Middle East, after as Trump would say, stopping 7 other global conflicts like India, Pakistan, or Azerbaijan, Armenia, he's on a roll, and he now really has the credentials to finally get some kind of agreement in Ukraine. He claimed this week, for example, a big diplomatic victory in persuading Narendra Modi, the Indian premier, to stop buying Russian oil, although India hasn't confirmed this. But if it's true, that would be a big lever against Putin by denying him his second biggest oil market and an important source of revenue. So I think there is confidence in the White House now that they're on a roll. They've put pressure on Putin. They've got the tomahawks. They've got all of the, if you like, the cards, to use Trump's expression, the cards on the table to get a result. But Putin is very good. He's demonstrated this over the last year. Putin is very good at talking to Trump, flattering his vanity, congratulating him on the Middle East peace process, persuading Trump that, maybe, he's willing to compromise, maybe he's serious about peace, and talking Trump out of any kind of decisive action, which then reduces support for Ukraine, reduces the pressure, and allows Putin to carry on the offensive. So I just hope, that Trump has learned that lesson, and the meeting in Budapest will not simply be a replay of the meeting of Trump and Putin in Helsinki during his first term, or the non-productive meeting in Alaska at the end of August.
It's also an interesting that meeting will be held in Hungary. It's not only European Union countries, but also the countries that are bound by the Rome Statute. Now, should we expect that Hungary will become another state that openly disregard this Rome Statute?
Yes, absolutely. I do believe, that's why the Russians have agreed to Hungary because it's not applying the Rome Statute. For example, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, who's also, like Putin, been indicted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes. Benjamin Netanyahu has visited Hungary with impunity. So Putin, who is very careful when he travels outside Russia these days, will feel protected or okay in Hungary. He also, of course, knows that Orban is somebody, who always takes the Russian line. A couple of days ago, Viktor Orban even said that Ukraine was not an independent sovereign country, which is an incredible statement by an EU prime minister to be making. There's been friction, of course, between Hungary and Ukraine recently, with Ukraine accusing Hungary of using drones over Ukrainian airspace. So it's not, in terms of the atmospherics or the symbolism, a place that I think the Ukrainians will be particularly comfortable about, particularly as they are not being invited. And so far, there is no indication that European leaders are going to be invited to participate. They'll have to try, as they did by going to Washington back in August to try at least to have some kind of voice at the table in support of Ukraine. So certainly, I think the Europeans would have preferred somewhere like Geneva, a more traditional location for old style, Cold War East-West diplomacy, a more neutral territory, more linked like Geneva is to the United Nations and to international law or international legality. So certainly, as I've said, not ideal, but it's not always, Sofia, the location or the symbolism that counts. It's the substance of the meeting. And if this meeting is in Hungary but still produces pressure on Russia towards peace, then I think historians will not complain too much about Budapest.
Today, Axios reports that this meeting, this call between Trump and Putin was unexpected for Ukrainian president, who actually just landed yesterday in Washington. Do you see this phone call as kind of a cold shower, especially for Ukrainians and the Ukrainian government, after weeks of speculations about potentially sending Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine? And could Trump now actually delay that decision?
Well, that's obviously, as they say in the United States, Sofia, the $64,000 question. Yes, I mean, it is a bit like if you're sort of planning a picnic and you're forecasting that it's going to be a nice sunny day with no clouds in the sky, and you wake up the next morning and you see it's pouring with rain, but you can still go ahead, of course, and have your picnic because you plan to do this. I think the first thing is that relations between Zelensky and Trump are much better than they were last February. Their recent meeting in the White House was much more cordial. The meeting in the Vatican after the death of the Pope, much more cordial. Zelensky has learned a lot about how to handle Trump, and he's received a lot of support, a lot of guidance, a lot of advice from the European leaders, and Trump has been more favorable in describing Zelensky lately. So in other words, they're in a better place than they were last February. Of course, as I said, it's not welcome news for Zelensky because, what's he hoping to do is not only to get a commitment on the Tomahawks in sufficient quantity and quickly, but also, of course, the Typhoon. These are the launchers of the Tomahawk, because if the Americans don't give the Ukrainians the launchers of the Tomahawk, simply giving them the missiles, which are normally fired from naval ships, is not going to be of much use. But he's also looking, as I mentioned earlier, Sofia, for this $90 billion package, which includes, ammunition, air defense systems, more Patriot systems. And he's also looking for more American industrial investment in Ukrainian defense industries. The Prime Minister, the head of the Ukraine Security Council, have been in Washington ahead of the Zelensky summit with Trump this week. They've been to Lockheed Martin, they've been to Raytheon, they've signed an agreement with Bell Aviation to get more American defense industries involved in production in Ukraine. That's very important and very significant. So Zelensky has got, a shopping list of various things. And I suppose from his perspective, and speaking, from my perspective, as a supporter of Ukraine, we have to hope, that sort of agreement, particularly the agreement on America buying Ukrainian drones, which has been negotiated for some time and which could produce significant income for Ukraine to buy more American weapons. We just have to hope that these different things will not be derailed. On Tomahawks, it was always a bit of an open question because Trump has sort of dangled Tomahawks, but always making it clear that he hasn't yet made a decision. And I think for Zelensky, the key thing will be to get a decision from Trump in order to keep the pressure up on Putin. Because let's face it, Putin uses similar long-range cruise missiles against Ukraine. So Russia has already escalated in that department. And of course, we know that it's now the Tomahawks that are putting Putin under pressure. So even if there's no immediate delivery of Tomahawks, the key thing I think for Zelensky is not seeing Trump publicly back away from this decision under pressure from Putin. I think that would be bad for deterrence, bad for Europe, and bad for Ukraine.